A Testimony to Sustainability by Josip Kumerički. Introduction. General solutions to specific problems become specific problems requiring general solutions. Emil Frederick's law. Consumers no longer only consume products and services. They are also consuming people and the environment. Catherine Jensen Boyd. We are all called to resolve the present problems of life on Earth. This book is a testimony arising from an engineering approach to analyzing the lives of 4 generations of one family in the light of sustainability. It consists of several posts from my blog, ecovalent.blogspot.com. The engineering mindset has 3 essential properties. The first is to see structure. The second is the adeptness at designing under constraints. And the third attribute involves trade-off. The ability to make considered judgments about solutions and alternatives. Guru Madhavan. My forebears consumed exactly the amount of goods, food, clothes and footwear that they could acquire as a result of their work in the nearby fields and forests. The earth today is an increasingly overloaded spaceship with rising consumption, waste, energy use, production, water use, traffic, and food production. Experts who analyze the economic situation talk of failure when the GDP of a country falls, but they rarely speak of success due to savings and self-denial, so that even with a lower GDP, an equal or higher standard of living can be achieved. It is obvious that we need to change the way we think and act in managing both our own households and the wider social community. But people are loath to change their habits and way of life. They live according to consumer rules without regard for the environment. At one time or another, we all wonder whether it would be possible to return to the way of thinking and living that characterized our backward parents and grandparents. Their shirts were grubby, but the water in their streams was clean enough to drink. In other words, should we descend into lower orbit or to lower slope of the mountain which we call overconsumption? Critically speaking, consumerism is trying to create a fictional heaven on earth by offering wealth of consumables, some of which we need, but many of which are superfluous. Karl R. Popper said, "The attempt to make heaven on earth invariably produces hell." Consumerist behavior, of which we are all guilty, obviously goes something like this. You buy an item because it is cheap, not because you need it. For example, you buy 4 pizza, and the 5th is free. Something which is free and surplus to requirements is extremely expensive to the environment, and though it may sit for a while in the freezer, will usually end up in the rubbish bin. A technosphere which destroys the biosphere should not be the goal of any society. We need to sketch in our own minds a direction in spending which will connect the minimum outlay of our grandparents and our own habits in order to find a way through the daily management of our material lives. Cutting back on irrational spending should not be seen as retrograde, but as a positive contribution to the lives of our descendants. Each person living in the EU uses 16 tons of matter, biomass, industrial goods based on raw mineral resources and fuels annually, not including water and air. In the last 40 years, the UN global statesmen and various expert organizations have attempted, by holding conferences and summits, Rio de Janeiro, Johannesburg, Agenda 21, Millennium Declaration, Marrakesh process, to direct the Earth's population towards sustainable consumption, sustainable production, and sustainable development. Sustainable consumption is the creation of goods and services using processes and systems which don't pollute the environment, which save energy and natural resources, which are economical, safe for the health of workers, the community and consumers, and which represent a social and creative reward for all working people. It should be remembered that sustainable development, which is often mentioned in political speeches, is actually an innovation consisting of several categories. Reducing the use of widely consumed goods, reducing and improving the efficiency or use of various sources of raw materials, recycling and reuse of materials. This article aims to present a potential way forward towards sustainable consumption and production by comparing modern life to the lives of our parents and grandparents, who lived according to the principles now embodied in UN definitions of sustainability. In Croatia, the average citizen uses about the same amount of electrical energy in winter and summer. Summer consumption is due to easily available cheap air conditioning systems paid for in installments, so that we can maintain a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius in our homes and offices throughout the year. In the past, our forebears knew what physical labor in the heat of summer meant, with wet clothes on their heads and uncomfortably high temperature. Figure 1. Sustainability in brackets consumption of production, closed brackets, in a cross-section of groups, society, the environment, and the economy. Today, in comparison to our grandparents' time, the Earth's population is 5 times as large. In addition, excessive consumption and our way of life has led to fear of ecological catastrophes. So, at the global level, goals have been set. One such goal is to ensure that the global mean temperature of the Earth's surface does not increase by more than 2 degrees Celsius in relation to the pre-industrial age. How can this be achieved? There are optimistic approaches to resolving the issue and pessimistic rejections claiming that it is insoluble. This article aims to mobilize people in the space in which they live to find the most optimistic approach possible. In the words of Lester Brown, though we may be living according to plan A, we need to reorient our lives according to plan B. All current strategies worldwide and in Croatia are based on the paradigm that increasing the efficiency of energy, raw material, and knowledge, information, consumption should be seen as the creation of new life sources, aspiring to efficacious work and efficient work. Products means moving close to achieving sustainability of life on Earth. If no other way is possible, then minimizing the destruction of the ecosphere is the best option in order to prolong the life of our planet for our children and grandchildren. Accordingly, in order to minimize environmental pollution, all activities which happen regularly in every household and at every workplace should be viewed through the prism of sustainable consumption and production. Think globally, act locally is a slogan which is already 20 years old, but which is more applicable now than ever. Chapter 1. My ancestors. We are waiting for Messiah, who will direct our economy in information technology terms to the default position after which it would function regularly in an ordered society. But what is that default position? Through thought processes and analysis, living conditions in the past need to be observed in order to recognize and compare modern processes in society and families. But which period? Perhaps even the early pages of the Bible, where it says the earth will produce thorn and tasteless for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food. In a more practical vein, let's look back 2 or 3 generations to the people in our society. We could take the lives of my grandfathers, who were agricultural workers, as a model for comparison with modern industrial society. Why? They lived according to biblical wisdom and ate their food by the sweat of their brows. Their retirement funds were their children, to whom they taught the 4th commandment: honor your father and mother, that you may live long in the land. Some people may want to contract it me. Today's times are different. Circumstances are different. Opportunities are different. And we cannot hark back to the old ways. The great economist J.K. Galbraith wrote a book called The Good Society in 1996. In it, he explained that in a good society, choosing social and economic necessities in all situations was the primary rule. Practical judgment should overrule doctrine. Today, certain protocols for an ecological economy, Kyoto, for example, should be observed, which also indicate change in the way we manage and compare situations in relation to earlier schools of economics. I never knew my paternal grandfather, Josip or Jožina, as my grandmother Barbara or Bara called him, because he died a year before I was born. I was named after